Have you ever felt a subtle tightening in your chest, a pressure that doesn't hurt but insists, as if something inside you were pushing against the edges of your awareness, trying to be seen? You know this sensation. Everyone does, but almost no one admits it. It's that strange internal flicker that appears when life is trying to tell you something, a whisper that seems too quiet to matter, yet too persistent to be coincidence. And still, you ignore it, almost as if ignoring it could make it disappear. But warnings do not disappear. They accumulate, they echo, they wait, and eventually, they return as consequences. Life never collapses without sending a signal first. There is always a tremor before the earthquake, a shadow before the fall, a silence before the ending, a flash before the impact. You can pretend you didn't feel it, but you did. Imagine yourself walking through a coastline consumed by fog. You can barely see 3 steps ahead. The air tastes like cold metal. The mist curls around your body like a living entity, and somewhere in the distance, barely visible, almost swallowed by the haze, a lighthouse pulses its warning light. Slow, repetitive, undeniable. It is not there to decorate the night. It is there to save those who are willing to see. But you're not looking. Your eyes are lowered. Your mind is elsewhere. Your life is on autopilot. The lighthouse flashes again, and you convince yourself it's nothing. You know this pattern. This exact moment appears before every major collapse in your life. A relationship changes tone. A decision feels heavy. Your intuition becomes strangely alert. Your energy drops. Something shifts in the field. Something whispers, "Pay attention." But attention is uncomfortable. Awareness is demanding. And distraction feels easier. So you scroll, you rationalize, you delay, you stay blind. But blindness does not protect you. It prepares you for impact. Hermeticism teaches that nothing in your reality is random. Every collapse, every heartbreak, every emotional avalanche unfolds along lines of cause and effect that were drawn long before the moment you finally noticed them. And if you trace them back, you will always find the same thing. Signals you ignored. A sentence that hurt more than it should have. A silence that became too loud. A recurring discomfort you drowned in noise. A gut feeling you labeled as overthinking. A dream that returned. A memory that resurfaced. A pattern repeating so precisely it could only be a message, but you didn't call it a message. You called it coincidence, because calling it a message would demand responsibility. And this is the most dangerous belief humans carry. The belief that early warnings are optional. Yet the universe operates under a different ethic, a hermetic ethic, one that does not excuse blindness. Everything you ignored transformed into a pattern. Every pattern you postponed transformed into a cycle. And every cycle you refused to break transformed into destiny. Destiny is not punishment. Destiny is simply probability solidified through repetition. Think back to the sudden moments of your life. The breakup that felt abrupt, the burnouts that seemed unexpected, the emotional implosions that caught you off guard, the opportunities you watched slip away as if they were never meant to stay. None of them were sudden. None were without warning. Every collapse in your life announced itself first in whispers you refused to hear. The lighthouse was flashing. You just didn't want to look up. Most people only wake up when the ship is already sinking, when the fog finally clears, not because they found clarity, but because the storm has torn everything apart. That is when they say, "I didn't see it coming." But the truth is that they did see it. They saw it dozens of times. They just chose not to believe what they saw. Hermeticism calls this the first failure of consciousness, the refusal to notice patterns that threaten the identity you want to maintain. And now, here you are, listening to these words, feeling something move inside you, not like new information, but like a memory your soul already knew, a recognition, a resonance, a pull, because you did not stumble onto this message by chance. Messages like this do not chase people. People attract them. And if you are here, it means the lighthouse has been flashing for longer than you admitted. It means something in your life, something foundational, has been warning you, not to harm you, but to redirect you before the collision becomes irreversible. You know this. Your body knows this. Your intuition has been begging you to stop pretending. This moment, right now, is not the beginning of the collapse. It is the last warning before the collapse. The final flash of the lighthouse before fog thickens again. And yet it is also a doorway, a threshold, a point of return, or no return. Because once you hear the true warning behind your life's repeating patterns, you cannot unhear it. Once the fog shifts and reveals the structures beneath your experiences, you cannot pretend you didn't see. And once the hermetic signal inside you awakens, there is no going back to sleep. So breathe. Everything inside you is rearranging. Everything around you is aligning. Everything ahead of you is preparing for revelation. The next block will show you how ignored signals become destiny, and why recognizing them now may be the one thing that prevents your next collapse. But before we continue, there is something I need to tell you, something only those who are ready will truly understand. Maybe no one ever really saw what you were carrying. Maybe you walked for years with questions no one could answer. You didn't find this message by accident. Messages like this are not imposed. They are attracted by the resonance inside you, and if something deep within you stirred, if these words felt more like a remembrance than information, it means you've always carried the key. We are about to reveal what has been waiting for you all along, and from this moment on, there is no turning back. If something vibrated inside you just now, tap the like button. That simple gesture is your "I am here," a signal that you are listening not with your mind, but with your soul. And through this small act, other seekers, just like you, may find their way back home. And if you're ready to walk further, touch the subscribe symbol below and step into this living temple of conscious creators who are rewriting reality from its true source. There is a moment in every seeker's life when the truth becomes too heavy to distort. A moment when you can no longer pretend that the patterns unfolding around you are random. A moment when you finally see the cost of ignoring what was whispering inside you all along. And the cost is always higher than you expected, because every signal you dismissed became a consequence. Every discomfort you buried became a wound. Every intuition you silenced became a chain. Every cycle you postponed became a prison. You know this. You've lived this. You've felt the slow accumulation of unresolved moments pressing against your chest like invisible weights. You've felt the exhaustion of repeating the same emotional storms, the same relational patterns, the same financial sabotages, the same internal wars. It wasn't fate, it was neglect. And neglect always multiplies. At first, the signs were small, almost insignificant, an uneasiness in the stomach before a decision you knew was wrong, a subtle anxiety that appeared when you were around certain people, a recurring tension that surfaced during conversations you pretended were harmless, micro-signals, micro-tremors, micro-warnings. But micro-warnings ignored become macro-collapse. Hermetic psychology teaches that the unconscious does not speak in words, it speaks in patterns. It repeats the same emotional weather until you finally step outside and face the storm instead of pretending it is sunny. And you have been carrying storms for years. Think of all the moments when you told yourself it's probably nothing, but internally, you knew it wasn't nothing. You felt the shift, you saw the change, you sensed the fracture, a friend's tone that carried a hidden intention, a partner's silence that held a truth you weren't ready to face, a career decision that felt hollow the moment you said yes, a habit that began as comfort but became a cage, a thought you dismissed but could never fully silence. These were not coincidences, they were warnings, and the universe kept repeating them, each time louder, each time clearer, each time closer to the breaking point. The problem was never that you didn't receive the signs, the problem was that you refused to interpret them, because seeing the truth requires strength. Ignoring it only requires avoidance. So you avoided. You rationalized. You told yourself stories that kept you safe for the moment but destroyed you long-term. You labeled your intuition as anxiety. You labeled your fatigue as laziness. You labeled your pain as just a phase. You labeled your calling as fear. You labeled your warnings as noise. But the noise was the message, and the message was consistent. Wake up. Something in you is breaking. There is a specific pain that comes from repeating the same mistake. Not the pain of the event itself, but the pain of recognizing that you participated in your own suffering, not consciously, but through silence, through hesitation, through postponing the inevitable truth you already knew. This is the hermetic cost. Every ignored sign accumulates interest. The law of cause and effect does not stop because you are tired. It does not soften because you are overwhelmed. It does not pause because you're not ready. It continues, silently, patiently, unavoidably. And when the collapse finally arrives, it arrives with the weight of every sign you dismissed. This is why heartbreak feels catastrophic. This is why burnout feels like death. This is why anxiety feels like drowning. This is why certain endings feel like the universe is punishing you. But punishment is not the Hermetic principle at work. Revelation is. You are not hurt because the universe abandoned you. You are hurt because the universe tried to warn you, and you refused to look. This is the psychological fracture of the modern seeker. A life overflowing with information but starving for awareness. A life busy with tasks but empty of presence. A life filled with movement but devoid of direction. You live in a world that taught you to ignore your internal signals in favor of external noise, to silence intuition for logic, to silence emotion for productivity, to silence truth for comfort, to silence warnings for denial. But silence does not save you. It only delays the inevitable. Every time you ignored a gut feeling, you paid with regret. Every time you ignored fatigue, you paid with collapse. Every time you ignored emotional truth, you paid with heartbreak. Every time you ignored your inner voice, you paid with a life that didn't feel like yours. And now the bill has arrived. This is why you're here. This is why you're listening. This is why every word is landing deeper than expected, because you've lived the consequences of deafness to your own soul. Hermeticism teaches, the pattern warns long before it destroys. And now, you're ready to hear the warning you avoided, because if you don't understand the cost, you will repeat it, and you are too aware, too awake, too aligned to continue paying the same price. This block exists to bring you face to face with the truth. Your life has been warning you for years. Your body has been warning you. Your intuition has been warning you. Your relationships have been warning you. Your energy has been warning you. Your dreams, your fears, your mistakes, all of them have been flashing like a lighthouse across the fog of your denial. And now the fog is clearing, and you can finally see what you pretended not to notice. But awareness is only the beginning. The next step is understanding the enemy, the invisible predator that feeds on your blindness, the force behind your repeated cycles, the mechanism behind your self-inflicted wounds. And that is what we will reveal next. If something inside you recognizes these patterns, do not let this moment fade. Tap the like button, mark this as your turning point, and subscribe if you're ready to stop repeating what has been silently destroying you. There is an enemy moving inside your life. Not loud, not violent, not dramatic, but subtle, patient, and devastating. You've felt it before. You've brushed against its presence. You've sensed its shadow behind your choices. And yet, because it does not roar, you never identified it as a threat. This enemy is not a person. It is not a situation. It is not the world. It is the illusion that you still have time. Time to change. Time to act. Time to leave. Time to choose differently. Time to stop the cycle. Time to finally listen. Time to confront the truth. The greatest predator in your life is the belief that later exists. Hermeticism teaches that delay is not neutrality. Delay is a decision, a frequency, a vibration, a cause with a consequence already forming in the invisible. When you postpone what you know is inevitable, you feed the predator. When you silence your intuition, you feed it again. When you rationalize the signs, you make it stronger. When you pretend the warnings can wait, you become its prey. Because time is not infinite, attention is not infinite, your energy is not infinite, your cycles are not infinite, but your illusions can last a lifetime. And the modern world is built to keep you hypnotized inside them. Every distraction is a sedative. Every notification is an extraction of presence. Every mindless scroll is a siphon of life force. Every emotional avoidance is a small self-betrayal. Every delay is another brick in the walls that keep you trapped. You live inside a psychological labyrinth designed to conceal the exit, not through force but through overstimulation. The enemy doesn't chase you. It doesn't have to. It simply waits for you to waste your own time. This is the predator, the part of you that believes there will always be another chance, another sign, another warning, another tomorrow. But there won't. Every cycle has a breaking point. Every path has a window of alignment. Every intuition has an expiration date. Every opportunity has a threshold. Every relationship has a final moment where presence could have saved it. And after that moment, not even your best efforts can resurrect what was lost. You think you're safe because nothing exploded yet. But that's the illusion. Collapse never looks like collapse until it arrives. It begins slowly. It begins quietly. It begins with tiny withdrawals of energy, subtle distortions in your emotional field, small frictions you dismiss, decisions you delay, truths you avoid, boundaries you don't hold, intuitions you silence. And then, one day, all the small consequences accumulate into something large enough to alter your entire path. People call it tragedy. People call it misfortune. People call it the universe turning against them. But what they're really experiencing is the final expression of all the signs they ignored. The predator didn't attack them. They walked straight into its mouth. Because the mind that believes it has infinite time becomes complacent. It becomes numb. It becomes passive. It becomes seduced by comfort. It becomes deaf to intuition. It becomes blind to patterns. It becomes paralyzed by the softness of familiar suffering. There is a special kind of damage created by believing you have more time. Time to heal later. Time to change later. Time to confront the truth later. Time to leave later. Time to choose yourself later. But later is the most dangerous word in the human language. Later is where dreams go to die. Later is where intuition rots. Later is where inner truth is buried. Later is where cycles tighten into chains. Later is where life collapses quietly. The Hermetic teachings warn, the longer you wait, the more the invisible consequences mature. And once they mature, they do not ask for permission, they simply unfold. Look at your life. Look at the moments when everything fell apart. Look at the relationships that became unrecognizable. Look at the opportunities that slipped away. Look at the truths you could no longer escape. Look at the breakdowns that felt sudden but were years in the making. All of them carried the same signature, the predator of delay, feeding on your belief that you had infinite time, but you don't. You never did. No one does. The universe offers alignment, not guarantees. It offers signals, not second chances. It offers warnings, not infinite grace. And the darkest truth is this: most people lose their greatest opportunities while waiting for a moment that already passed. You feel this, don't you? A pressure in your chest right now. A recognition, not fear, memory, not panic, clarity. Because the predator you're finally seeing is not external. It is the part of you that believed you could wait forever, but now you're waking up. And once you wake up, the predator can no longer feed. In the next block, we reveal the Hermetic shift, the moment when the warning becomes the map, and when fear becomes perception. This is where your inner lighthouse ignites. This is where you stop being prey to your own delay. Everything changes from here. The first map is waiting in the pinned portal. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the invisible becomes undeniable, when what once felt like intuition suddenly reveals itself as law. You've reached that moment, the threshold where signals stop feeling symbolic and start feeling structural. The point where you realize that the universe was not whispering metaphors, it was giving instructions, because nothing in your life, absolutely nothing, ever collapsed without announcing itself first. Every heartbreak carried a prelude. Every betrayal carried a vibration. Every burnout carried an early tremor. Every opportunity that slipped through your fingers carried a moment where its absence could have been prevented. Every life-changing decision began as a quiet imbalance in your field. Life doesn't hide the truth from you. Life exposes the truth long before you are strong enough to face it. Hermeticism names this the law of causality, the architecture behind every experience you call fate. This law is not poetic. It is not metaphorical. It is mechanical, operative, exact. And yet most people move through their lives as if reality were a series of accidents, unaware that the signals they overlook are the very threads weaving their destiny. The law of cause and effect is not a rule. It is a structure, a blueprint, a map, a silent engineer shaping the flow of your life moment by moment. And here is the revelation most people are never taught. Collapse is not a moment. It is a buildup. Breakdown is not an event. It is a timeline. Destiny is not written. It is accumulated. When your relationship ended, it didn't end that day. It ended in every ignored conversation, every unspoken truth, every suppressed feeling, every moment you sensed something shifting but told yourself you were imagining things. When you burned out, it didn't happen that week. It happened in every night you pushed past the warning. Every morning you forced yourself against your own rhythm. Every task you said yes to when your soul was screaming no. When you lost yourself, It didn't happen suddenly. It happened slowly, quietly, incrementally, through every moment you abandoned your inner voice for outer approval, every time you silenced your intuition to protect an identity that was already dissolving. The hermetic warning was always there. You simply didn't recognize the language, because the universe does not speak in words. It speaks in patterns. It speaks in repetition, in friction, in discomfort, in synchronicities, in dreams, in the tightening of your chest, in the heaviness you feel before the truth emerges, in the way certain people drain your energy the moment they enter the room, in the way your own soul whispers, "This will cost you," long before the cost becomes visible. And once you learn to read these patterns, your entire reality transforms, because you begin to see everything before it happens. This is the real power behind Hermetic wisdom. It allows you to see collapse before it becomes collapse. It allows you to see destiny forming before it solidifies. It allows you to act before it's too late. Most people only respond once the damage is irreversible. They wait for the explosion instead of listening for the vibration. They respond to the fire instead of recognizing the spark. But the spark is where the universe whispers, "Change course now. Correct the trajectory now. Listen now. Don't wait for the storm." And here is the truth that will reshape your understanding of your own life. Every warning you ignored did not disappear. It transformed. It became the exact experience needed to force your evolution. You didn't lose because you were weak. You lost because you postponed the discomfort of truth. You didn't suffer because life is cruel. You suffered because you delayed alignment. You didn't fall because you were destined to. You fell because the signs required for your transformation were denied until they could no longer be denied. In Hermetic language, what you refuse to awaken through awareness, you awaken through impact. But awareness is awakening now. You feel it, a clarity pressing against the edges of your perception, a sensation that what you thought were coincidences were actually instructions, a growing recognition that your life has been speaking to you. And now you finally understand the language. The fog is thinning. Your inner lighthouse is igniting. The architecture behind your cycles is revealing itself. This is the moment when the warning becomes illumination, when fear becomes comprehension, when confusion becomes alignment. And once you see the law operating, you can no longer pretend you are powerless. You can no longer pretend your life is random. You can no longer pretend you don't know what must be done, because the signal has become too clear, too loud, too focused, too aligned with what your soul already knows. And now, the next step is understanding how to redirect the pattern before it becomes irreversible, how to act while the warning still carries mercy, how to intervene before the collapse completes its descent, how to finally shift the architecture of your destiny. Every collapse in your life, every emotional implosion, every relational ending, every moment that shattered your sense of stability was not random, it was not sudden, and it was never a surprise to the deeper intelligence within you. There were signs, there were patterns, there were tremors, and long before the event itself, there were whispers pushing you toward awareness. Collapse is not chaos, collapse is communication. The universe never destroys without first attempting to redirect. Most people fail not because they are weak, but because they never learned how to interpret the three warnings that always appear before a life-altering rupture. Once you see them, you can no longer unsee them. Once you understand them, you will never again call a collapse unexpected. And now, you're finally ready to recognize them. Sign 1, the friction in the field. The first sign is energetic, subtle, and often dismissed as stress or overthinking. It begins with an unexplainable heaviness. Not pain, not fear, just weight. Conversations feel slightly off. Your environment becomes strangely loud. Small interactions drain you more than they should. You wake up with an undefined tension in the chest, a sense of internal resistance you cannot name. This is not emotional noise. This is your field destabilizing. Hermeticism teaches that energy shifts long before behavior shifts, and behavior shifts long before events shift. Before the breakup, the energy of connection weakens. Before financial collapse, the vibration of scarcity appears in the background of your decisions. Before burnout, the field tightens around your intentions. Before betrayal, the relational field feels hollow. Even if the mask is intact, you always feel the tremor, not through logic, but through resonance. And every time you told yourself, something feels off, you were right. You didn't misread the situation. You ignored the message. Sign 2, the repetition of the symbol. The second sign appears through repetition. A symbol, number, phrase, conflict, emotion, or situation that keeps returning in different forms. The universe speaks through patterns because repetition breaks denial. You notice the same argument happening in every relationship. You notice the same emotional wound reopening in new contexts. You notice the same opportunity slipping in the same way. You notice the same mistake repeating with new faces. You notice the same internal warning resurfacing after years. You notice the same emotional weather returning, unchanged. This is not coincidence. This is recursion, the fractal principle behind causa e effetto. The pattern repeats because you didn't transform. The symbol returns because you didn't listen. The cycle continues because awareness has not replaced habit. When the same conflict appears again, it is not bad luck. It is a hermetic announcement. You are facing the same doorway you refuse to enter. You are not being punished. You are being given another chance. Sign 3, the silent withdrawal of life force. The third sign is the most dangerous because it is the quietest. It is the internal dulling of vitality, the fading of creativity, the shrinking of your intuition, the slow erosion of your emotional presence. Your mind becomes foggy. Your decisions feel mechanical. Your inner world loses color. You stop dreaming vividly. You stop imagining alternatives. You stop feeling the truth of your own path. This is not fatigue. This is not just stress. This is your life force retreating from a timeline that is no longer aligned with you. When your soul begins pulling its energy away from a cycle, collapse becomes inevitable, unless you shift course consciously. When collapse finally manifests on the outside, it's only because the inner collapse completed long before. The withdrawal of life force is the universe's final attempt to warn you. You cannot stay here. You cannot keep moving this way. You cannot ignore yourself any longer. This sign is sacred because once life force begins to withdraw, you are being pushed toward an entirely new timeline, one you were too afraid to enter consciously. These 3 signs do not predict destruction. They predict transformation. They are not warnings of death. They are invitations to rebirth. They are not punishments. They are the architecture of awakening. And now that you recognize them, you will never again say, "I didn't see it coming," because you did see it. You were always capable of seeing it. You simply needed the language to understand what you were seeing. But the real power begins now, not in recognizing the signs, but in acting on them. In the next block, we move from perception to practice. We integrate the Hermetic principle into your daily decision-making. So collapse is no longer something that happens to you. It becomes something you see from miles away. This is where awareness becomes direction, where intuition becomes action, where warning becomes mastery. The lighthouse is no longer outside you. It is inside you. Write what echoed. It seals your initiation. There is a moment in every awakening when perception shifts from being passive to becoming a force, a real force, one that shapes the direction of your life as clearly as gravity shapes the fall of a stone. That moment begins here, with a single realization. Attention is creation. Attention is alignment. Attention is destiny taking form through your awareness. Everything in your life, every cycle, every relationship, every collapse you've experienced was not shaped by desire, but by attention. Not by what you wished for, but by what you consistently focused on. Not by your intentions, but by your repeated awareness. Hermeticism teaches that attention is not simply a mental act. It is an energetic contract. Whatever you give attention to becomes fed by your life force. Whatever you repeatedly notice becomes magnetized into your path. Whatever you continuously observe becomes the architecture of your reality. You are not shaped by what you want. You are shaped by what you notice. Before every transformation, a single shift occurs. Your attention changes direction. Before every collapse, a single shift occurs. Your attention fragments. Attention is the steering wheel of consciousness. And without conscious attention, you drift into cycles you never chose. This is why the signs were repeating. This is why you felt the friction. This is why the patterns intensified. Your attention was scattered, leaking into habits, fears, distractions, and unresolved pain. A distracted mind is not harmless. A distracted mind is a creator with its eyes closed. And when a creator closes their eyes, the unconscious takes the wheel. And the unconscious always drives you back to your oldest wounds, your oldest fears, your oldest patterns. But the moment you bring attention back into your hands, truly bring it back, the entire trajectory of your life begins to shift. Not through effort, but through awareness. Not through force, but through presence. Because attention is the most powerful hermetic tool you have, the tool that transforms warning into direction, chaos into clarity, collapse into awakening. The first shift, attention reveals what was hidden. When you begin to observe your internal landscape instead of running from it, the first thing that happens is revelation. You start seeing the micro signals you used to miss. You start noticing the emotions beneath your reactions. You start perceiving the truth behind your relationships. You start sensing the consequences forming far before they manifest. Patterns that once felt invisible suddenly become obvious. Behaviors that once felt automatic become transparent. Relationships that once felt stable reveal the fractures beneath the surface. Opportunities that once felt out of reach begin to glow with clarity. Attention brings light, and light reveals structure. The second shift, attention interrupts the cycle. The moment you become aware of a pattern, it loses its power to control you. A cycle can only repeat when you cannot see it forming. But once you see the mechanics behind your suffering, the cycle begins to unravel. Awareness interrupts autopilot. Awareness dissolves denial. Awareness exposes the architecture of collapse before collapse arrives. And slowly, the unconscious behaviors that once shaped your destiny begin to fall apart. The third shift, attention creates the new timeline. This is where the Hermetic principle becomes unmistakably alive. Your reality does not change when your circumstances change. Your reality changes the moment your attention relocates from fear to truth, from avoidance to awareness, from repetition to responsibility. Because wherever your attention goes, energy flows, and wherever energy flows, form follows. When you begin to place conscious attention on your alignment, your body recalibrates, your relationships shift, your opportunities change shape, your intuition sharpens, and reality begins reorganizing around your new vibration. Attention is a summoning. Attention is an invocation. Attention is the first act of creation. The fourth shift, attention restores life force. Remember the third warning of collapse, the silent withdrawal of life force? Attention is what brings that energy back. When you place conscious awareness on your inner world, your vitality returns, your inspiration reignites, your creativity awakens, your intuition reopens, your emotional clarity resurfaces, your drive reappears. Conscious attention replenishes what emotional avoidance drains. This is why mystics, alchemists, and hermetic initiates devoted their lives to the cultivation of awareness, not because it was a spiritual ideal, but because it was the only way to reclaim the creative power that had been scattered by fear, distraction, and unconscious repetition. Attention is not passive. Attention is active magic. The fifth shift, attention makes the invisible inevitable. Once your attention becomes conscious, you begin to recognize something extraordinary. The universe responds, patterns reorganize, timelines shift, people fall away or come closer, opportunities appear in the exact moment that your awareness expands. Your life stops feeling like chaos and begins feeling like choreography. You stop reacting and begin directing. You stop collapsing and begin anticipating. You stop being shaped and begin shaping. Because when attention becomes conscious, the lighthouse is no longer outside you, flashing through your fog. It becomes internal, a permanent source of clarity radiating from your own center. And the more you cultivate conscious attention, the more you step into the role you were always meant to inhabit. Not the one who survives reality, but the one who creates it. The next block takes this power and moves it into action, into real applied practice, the bridge between awareness and transformation. This is where your new timeline begins to take shape. This portal has a sequence. Follow the thread in the pinned comment. There is a moment in every journey when the seeker stands at the edge of a new horizon. Not because the world changed, but because they finally acquired the eyes to see it. You are standing at that horizon now. You've walked through the fog of denial. You've recognized the warnings you once ignored. You've witnessed the predator of delay. You've seen how patterns announce destiny long before destiny manifests. You've learned how the energy shifts first, how the symbol repeats, how a life force withdraws, how cycles tighten, all before collapse becomes visible. But there is a deeper truth holding all of this together, one that every Hermetic initiate eventually faces. The universe warns you because it wants to spare you. But if you refuse to listen, the illusion takes control. The illusion, the silent force that keeps you hypnotized by the familiar, sedated by distraction, numbed by routine, blinded by repetition. It doesn't need to attack you. It only needs you to stay asleep. It thrives when you postpone. It survives when you doubt your intuition. It grows when you silence the internal signal. It wins every time you choose comfort over truth. You have been here before. This crossroads where you feel the truth pressing against your ribs, where the fog begins to thin, where the lighthouse grows brighter, where you can finally sense the architecture beneath your own experiences. And every time you reached this place in the past, something pulled you back. A distraction, a fear, an old identity, a familiar cycle, a voice that whispered, later. You can face this later, but later is how the illusion survives. And you know, now that later is a lie. If you turn away now, if you shrink back into old patterns, if you dismiss the clarity rising within you, if you let this awareness fade, your life will replay everything you just learned to escape. The warning will repeat, the pattern will tighten, the cycle will return, the collapse will come again, because the illusion doesn't need force, it only needs your forgetfulness. And that is why this moment matters more than any moment that came before, because this is the first time you are aware enough to choose, not react, choose, not run, choose, not deny, choose. Listen carefully. If you stop here, the illusion wins. If you continue, the path opens. This is the line that decides everything. The lighthouse is fully visible now. No fog, no distortion, no hesitation. It's not warning you anymore. It's calling you, because warnings are for the unconscious. Callings are for those who are finally awake. And you are awake. You may not feel ready. You may not feel powerful. You may not feel certain, but awakening rarely feels like confidence. It feels like recognition. It feels like inevitability. It feels like the moment when what you always sensed becomes something you can no longer deny. You were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to walk blind. You were never meant to repeat collapse after collapse. You were never meant to be prey to your own delay. You were meant to see, and now, you do. You crossed an entire arc of revelation, through signs, patterns, warnings, laws, energy, and truth. You moved from unconscious drift to conscious attention. You shifted from being shaped by life to beginning to shape your own timeline. This is not an ending. This is a return to the truth you abandoned, to the clarity you feared, to the path you forgot. And the symbol of the lighthouse, the warning you kept ignoring, is no longer outside you. It is inside you now, permanent, luminous, unavoidable. This is the moment where the seeker becomes the initiate, where the witness becomes the architect, where awareness becomes identity, and from this moment forward, you cannot go back to who you were. In the next chapter of this journey, the next video, the path deepens, the warning becomes mastery, the signs become instruction, the laws become tools, the symbols become maps. If you sensed resonance here, the next portal will strike even deeper, because Hermetic transformation is a spiral, and you have only completed the first rotation. You crossed the threshold. The next gate is already open. You've crossed this portal. The next one is already open.